all, it's James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade, and I'm here with a politically charged video where I want to talk about, well, there's a lot of earth-shattering problems happening in our country, all simultaneously. We have our civil rights eroding before our eyes. The Second Amendment is under fire. The Supreme Court is under fire. The way we vote is under fire. There's just a litany of various problems happening here on the home front, where we have one political party trying to become the new authoritarian single-party system and turn the United States into basically another China. So, we have turmoil. We are not united, and we have problems rearing their head outside of the United States. For years now, the U.S. has been the shield that protected various lives throughout Asia. One in particular would be Taiwan. So the U.S., the fear of U.S. retaliation, the fear of U.S. plus of a united Western coalition, Australia, England, France, so on and so forth, has always dissuaded China from possibly provoking a world war over their Taiwan interests. That's a serious issue, right? Taiwan is its own independent country. Taiwan is not part of China. That's just a normal perspective here in the United States. And that's a very different perspective if you're in China. China believes very differently. But Taiwan has remained free for this long period of time because the U.S. military is pretty much unparalleled in the world. And while China has always had, some sort of relationship with the Kremlin, was never, I would never say that the two communist powers, the Soviet Union and China, they were never in lockstep. While they shared similar interests, one could never particularly rely on the other to come to the aid versus the United States. They always felt, isolated. Well, here we have a new situation unfolding. We have a U.S. that's unusual in that its populace is divided. We have a U.S. where we have a leader who's literally senile, and we appear incredibly weak on the world stage. And then we have a mess created by the Obama administration in the Ukraine that's now rearing its ugly head one more time. What is this mess? So when a lot of people think about the Crimea and the Ukraine and that whole situation where we almost went to war several years ago under Obama, we were close as one could say the U.S. has been with anyone of any significant capacity to fight back in many years. That was a flashpoint that we managed to avoid once, but now the flashpoint is coming back. And who caused the flashpoint? Low information Americans would believe that Russia caused the flashpoint by invading Crimea. But they would be wrong. It was not Russia that purposely meddled in Ukrainian politics to get the Russian puppet government, the government that was sympathetic to Russia's interests, to get it removed. No, that was the United States. The United States should know better than to meddle in other countries' politics. How many times have we meddled in other countries' politics, and how many times has it backfired on us? So many times through history. So many of the quote-unquote most tyrannical and worst leaders in the world were there because the United States installed them, from Saddam Hussein to Muammar Gaddafi. The list is long. And most Americans thought that the U.S. had gotten out of the business of meddling with other governments. But Obama, he seemed to not understand the lessons of history and decided to oust the sympathetic Russian government in Ukraine with a government that would be sympathetic to the United States. Anyone with half a brain would tell you just how bad of an idea that is. Ukraine literally sits on the border of Russia. In fact, Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union, right? Russia and Ukraine are certainly, I don't know, in a certain sphere of influence where the United States probably shouldn't be meddling. It would be akin to, say, the Soviet Union deciding that they should install a sympathetic regime in Mexico and oust the president of Mexico and put a sympathetic communist government into Mexico. And, you know, that would have went over like a box of rocks. You know, the United States would not have stood for Soviet meddling in Mexico. I mean, we didn't want to stand for Soviet meddling in Cuba. Granted, we caused the whole... So Cuba is another one of those examples where we put a person in power who then didn't quite work out the way we expected, and then turned to our mortal enemy, the Soviets, leading to the whole Cuban Missile catastrophe that almost led to nuclear annihilation, because the Soviet Union had gotten influence, had gotten a way to propel its power on our doorstep, and the U.S. didn't like it. But then we decided to just happily propel our influence on the doorstep of Russia years later with the whole Ukraine thing. Not smart politics, not smart foreign affairs, just stupid in general. And so when Russia reacted the way it did, and it took its historic port, the Crimean Peninsula, where the large majority of its naval military hardware is docked, where it was docked under a sympathetic puppet government that was the Ukraine, and all of a sudden the U.S. meddled and turned the sympathetic puppet government that was the Ukraine into a non-aligned government that wasn't sympathetic to Russian interests. Russia then had to make a decision, and it made the decision to take back the land that had historically belonged to Russia for a millennia. They're not lying about the fact that that land had belonged to Russia for years and years and years, and that the only reason Ukraine had it is because one particular Ukrainian prime minister when the Soviet Union was a thing decided to hand that block of land over to Ukraine in some sort of inter-Soviet politics type thing, right? But it didn't matter then because, everything was under the umbrella of the Soviet Union. But as far as Russia's concerned, the Crimea is theirs, and they have a legitimate claim to that fact. So basically, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that we have two major issues happening at different parts of the country, happening with the two countries that are our nearest rival in military might and power, and simultaneously those two countries on the very same day tell the United States to shut the fuck up and stand the fuck back because we're not going to put up with you. Because they perceive the United States as being weak. And they're right. We are weak. We're led by a feckless politician who's basically a geriatric. He's senile. He's basically a puppet for who? We don't really know. Some sort of corporatist elite group of, insert your worst nightmares, and it's probably what has transpired. So, if Obama hadn't fucked up in the Ukraine, we would only have one historic issue that Biden would be needing to be dealing with right now, and that would be Taiwan. The one place where the U.S. needs to be a shield, where the U.S. needs to stand up against China. However, when on the very same day, Russia warns the United States to stay away for its own good as the Ukraine standoff intensifies, as Russia warns Biden to stay the hell out of their interest, on the exact same day that China warns the United States to stay the hell out of its interests, stay out of Taiwan, don't meddle in Taiwan, in pretty much the exact same tone and rhetoric that Russia delivers to us. Well, isn't that just grand? What should happen is we should basically ignore what's happening in the Ukraine because we fucking caused it, and just accept the fact that Russia controls the Crimea. I mean, we accepted that fact under Obama. Obama gave it up. There's 40,000 Soviet troops in the Crimea right now, basically maintaining the fact that this is our land. We have no business in that fight, but we do have a business with Taiwan. We have stood in the way of China in the Taiwanese Strait for years, and we should continue to stand in the way of China for years. But sadly, is Joe Biden or the puppets pulling his strings, are they going to be intelligent enough to know which of these two flashpoints we need to avoid and the other one we need to stand firm on? Probably not. In fact, I could almost see the reverse happening. I could almost see the feckless Biden caving to China, giving up Taiwan, and then trying to push U.S. military might in the Crimea and going after Russia. Because I don't understand the Democrats' cabal, their focus with Russia, Russia, Russia. Everything bad is, oh, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. They're hyper focused on Russia like it's this evil entity. And then it's no more evil than China. In fact, Russia is what Russia is. If you look at Russia through objective lenses, you see a country that's waned in power, is trying to rebuild, is fairly strong, and is starting to find its place in the world stage after the Soviet Union's collapse. And it's not exactly lined up with the United States. But it's not. There doesn't have to be another Cold War. There doesn't have to be another. The rhetoric that the Democrats want to use towards Russia is kind of uncalled for. And then what Obama did in the Ukraine was seriously uncalled for. But I digress. And then we have China, who is clearly aggressive, right? Has no real claim to Taiwan. Their claim to Taiwan comes, how do I put this? Let's just say Russia's claim to Crimea was far more recent than China's claim to Taiwan. In fact, Taiwan has more credible claims on China. Because if you actually study the whole conflict, the Chinese government evacuated to Taiwan, right? Taiwan was basically where the actual Chinese government went in exile, and they literally hold the seal. There's this special seal that is really important for China, which basically, I don't know, it denotes the true leadership of China. And so when you look at this supposed claim that China has over Taiwan, it's actually the reverse. Taiwan actually has a more credible claim over the entirety of China. But Taiwan is this tiny little island nation that has no chance of pushing such a claim on this giant country. But I digress. We are currently facing a situation at home that is horrible. But abroad, what is transpiring right now, the words that are being sent to the U.S. right now, could literally pull us into another world war. How the incompetent Biden fumbles his way through the fact that China and Russia, in unison, are standing up against U.S. influence in unison, in lockstep. This is a problem of serious proportion. Is the weak old man, Joe Biden, just going to give up Taiwan without a fight? Is he going to pull us into war with Russia? Is he going to pull us into war with both? It's scary. The thought process is truly scary, especially when half the United States is at each other's throats. And that's the depressing video I have for you today. I'm James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade. This is my content. Hopefully you're not really enjoying it, but if so, please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next time, all, peace.